שאלה של טרמינולוגיה. אנחנו פותחים סדרה שעוסקת במילים ומינוחים באנגלית, שרצוי להשתמש דווקא בהם בהדרכה על פני מילים אחרות. מדובר כמובן בתמיכה ועזרה למורי דרך שהאנגלית איננה שפת אימם. כמורי דרך אנו צריכים לדייק עד כמה שניתן במילים שאנו בוחרים. את המפגש הראשון בסדרה הזו, שאלה של טרמינולוגיה, אני מקדישה למונחים מכלילים לקבוצות דתיות. לא דתות, יהדות נצרות אסלאם, אלא העדות, הזרמים, התנועות שיש בכל דת ודת, אבל בעיקר בנצרות. כמו בעברית, כך גם באנגלית יש מספר מושגים ומונחים. יש בעברית, כמו באנגלית, גם מילים שמקבלות עם הזמן משמעות או חיובית או שלילית, שמוסרות באופן מובלע הערכה לגבי הקבוצה המסוימת. דוגמה, אם בארץ כיום אני אדבר על עדה מסוימת ואומר שהיא כת, יועבר כמובן מסר שלילי. אם אני אגיד שזו כיתה דתית, זה כבר יותר טוב. ומה לגבי עדה? כן, זה ביטוי מכובד. אבל בכל זאת איננו מדברים על העדה הרפורמית היהודית, מדברים על התנועה הרפורמית. אז בקיצור, מה נכון להגיד באנגלית כאשר אנחנו מדברים על הזרמים הנוצרים השונים, ויש כאלה הרבה בארץ. כמובן שהלוואי והדת הייתה מקשה אחת, דוגמטית ופולחנית, מצד שני כמובן לנו כמורי דרך גם היה משעמם יותר להדריך בארץ. אני רוצה להתייחס למילה מאוד מאוד מסוימת, שאותה אני רוצה ומבקשת להוריד מהלקסיקון של הדרכה בארץ. אני אתחיל דווקא עם הדוגמה הזאת, פרסום רשמי שמוכר סיורים לתיירים באופן וירטואלי, זה אגב גוף שמקבל תקציב מהמדינה, והוא פרסם את הדבר הבא, In the footsteps of Christian sects, כך כתוב, Walking tour of the old city of Jerusalem, והם מבטיחים לבקר את הקתולים ואת האורתודוקסים, את הקופטים, את הארמנים. נורה אדומה נדלקה לי. סקט? ואם כך עושה פרסום ממשלתי, אז אולי אנחנו פוגעים בתיירים שלנו על בסיס יומיומי, כדי לבדוק האם באמת זה פוגע בתיירים, בדקתי את המילה סקט במילון ובסטר. ווובסטר אומר כך, sect, a religious body or denomination, אז שימו לב שיש כבר שתי אפשרויות, religious body וגם denomination, אבל אז הוא ממשיך, especially a small group that has broken away from an established church. האם מדובר, כשהציעו לנו את הסיור על הסקט בירושלים, שהאורתודוקסים הם small group that has broken away from an established church, ממש קשה מאוד להגיד את זה. מצד שני, כשאני בודקת במילון לטיני, אני רואה שהמילה סקט הגיעה מהפועל ומהמילה סקווי, כמו אגב sequence, וזה to follow, זה ללכת אחרי. ישוע, למשל, באבנגליונים, אומר סקוורה מה, follow me. אז אני מבינה שבמקור אולי זה היה בסדר. אבל אז אני ממשיכה ובודקת במילונים אחרים, ואני מגלה שתחת המילה סקט יש לי את התיאור הבא. A group of people with somewhat different religious beliefs, typically regarded as heretical, from those of a larger group to which they belong, ואחרי כן רשימה של מילים נרדפות, והראשונה, religious cult, והאחרונה, heretical movement. בקיצור, הזמנתי שני דוברי אנגלית מבית, שניהם מלומדים, שיוכלו לשפוך אור על המינוח הנכון שאיננו מעליב אף אחד. אז אמי דני קופ רואה קהילה של העדה הבפטיסטית בירושלים, ולצידו אבי בן חור, רכז קורסי מורי דרך לשעבר, מורה דרך, ומרצה בנושא יהדות. דני, ערב טוב. אני רוצה לדעת איך אתה היית רוצה להשתמש בקטגוריה מכלילה לקבוצות השונות בנצרות. האם היית משתמש במילה סקט?
So that's really a great question, Yisכה. When you posed it to me, the word sect, it's obviously a very well-known word, and I had to ask myself, and actually had to go to my father, who was a pastor before me as well and retired now. And I said, this, obviously the word sect is one that's always around, and we use it, but we don't use it. What in the world? When do we use this word? We would never use it on each other. Do we use it regarding other Christian denominations? That's the word we generally use, right? About myself, I'm an evangelical pastor, and other evangelical denominations, that's easy. Baptists, Methodists, Presbyterians, those are denominations. But what about when it comes to Catholics and Orthodox or other Christian churches, Christian groups? They certainly wouldn't want to be called a sect, a group that's, as you read in your definition, a group that's broken away, or even not even necessarily broken away, but a group that is a branch of something larger. The Catholic Church, certainly, which considers itself the mother church, and the Orthodox Church, Greek Orthodox Church, and other Orthodox churches as well, consider themselves the one true church, wouldn't consider themselves a branch of anything. They are the trunk, the mother church, the one true church. So, but then how would we call them? Because we also don't consider them denominations. They don't consider themselves denominations. And so when we're in a group of an ecumenical meeting, for example, and we're all of us meeting together, I had to sort of scratch my head and say, wait a minute, how is it that we all call each other? And it's one of those things where we there's a little bit of an awkward sort of scratching and looking for terminology, but it's churches. We refer to each other as churches. And a sect, you're right, has a sort of negative connotation to it.
What about denomination? Is denomination a problematic term? Is it derogatory? You say Catholics wouldn't want to use it for themselves, but does it imply something negative?
You're right. I think Catholics wouldn't be comfortable with a word like that, because it implies something smaller, or something of having broken off, or somehow being less than whole. But Protestants, there it is, inherent in the name Protestant, right? Protest is in the name. They're clear about having broken off, or even being a branch of something larger, and that doesn't bother them at all. And they're fine with being a stream of something larger, and that's perfectly fine. So denomination, a stream, branch, that's totally fine. And we're most Protestants will be absolutely fine with the word denomination.
But to sum up for the moment, you say that the definition of churches is good enough for all, both for Protestants and for the Catholics and the Anglicans and the Orthodox?
Definitely, yeah. Churches for all, and definitions and denominations for Protestants, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Would you also use the word communities or religious communities?
Yes, yeah. Faith communities works. It's funny that, in Lebanon, they had to come up with yet another term for the many groups, and there were confessional groups, and that was a term that was sort of neutral, and they use the word confessional groups, but that's really something that's just sort of esoteric to that very unique place. But yeah, faith community works for most Protestants, and certainly denomination does as well.
Thank you, Danny, for now. Avi, how would you describe the different churches or groups that occupy the Church of the Holy Sepulchre? Would you refer to them as sects, denominations, communities, faith communities?
I think Donnie put his finger on it very nicely. It depends on who you're standing in front of. What is your target audience at that very moment? And it's clear that if you're standing in front of a Protestant group of whatever the faith community is, you could use the term faith communities, you could use the term denomination, and it wouldn't bother them at all. But of course, if you are standing in front of Catholics, you're going back to what Danny was saying, which is that they are the church. So I would talk about the various churches, maybe even historic churches, but churches that are vested and participate, control, live in this complex, this compound, this complex called the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. So I think that for sure, churches in the capital C would be a very relevant term, particularly for non-Protestant target audiences. And again, we have to concede that if you're talking about American tourists, and if you have a mixed group that can be of different Christian faiths, they'd be okay with denomination, even if they're Catholic or Greek Orthodox, what have you. They're also living in colloquial English, and they understand that there's one thing when you're talking within your own community, and there's another thing when you're now a community of tourists of different branches or different types. And I think that it's generically accepted to use the term, let's say, denomination. I think that would be fine in that context.
Danny, I want to ask you about the Mormons. Do they consider themselves as a church, a denomination? And also I'd like to ask you about the different evangelical groups. There are sometimes big communities that do not identify with being Baptists or Presbyterian. They're evangelicals following a certain preacher. How do you define these communities?
You're right. There's other groups that your majority of Protestants or evangelicals, they would probably like to use the word sect or even something more like cult, which definitely has a more derogatory connotation towards it, and they would probably most would probably give that term to Mormons, and Mormons would certainly consider themselves a mainstream denomination of Christianity today, and more they are being mainstreamed as they sort of find themselves in the mainstream of American public life. Certainly, as you see more and more Mormon, famous Mormon people come into public life, like someone like Mitt Romney, who was once the presidential candidate. And so, and as that happens, I think that has an effect on society, has an effect on evangelicals themselves as well. Probably less and less, at least publicly, evangelicals would use the term sect or cult. Certainly.
So what would you
to a Mormon if they were in the same room, at least, maybe in their kitchen.
So what is the term for the very many different evangelical groups? Evangelical groups?
Yeah, I still think you can say denominations. We're all denominations and groups, branches of. But you know, it's a debate. It's a debate that not everyone will agree on. So, and I think that's okay. It's
fluid,
absolutely.
But we know what we don't want to use. אבי,
Yes.
אתה מדריך את נושא היהדות, אתה מדריך המון על הזרמים היהודיים בארץ, בעולם. איך באנגלית אתה מתייחס לקבוצות היהודיות? גם כ-denominations?
So again, a lot depends on my target audience. I would say denomination is a neutral term, and it would be fine to speak to virtually any target audience in the context of speaking about Jewish groupings or Jewish streams. Denomination is fine. Nobody's going to be, I think, insulted by it. Historically, it was a reform movement, the conservative movement, neo-Orthodox movement. So, and this is a mindset. When you talk about a movement as opposed to a community, which is, we were kind of having that discussion about Christian communities or faith, it's a different mindset when you talk about a movement per se. We have to take into account, we're talking about less streams or less denominations in Judaism than we are in Christianity. That's also important. But I also think that it's very important that we have to remind ourselves as Israelis that terms in Hebrew are not one-to-one in English. And I think one of the best examples is the term Haredi. We take for granted Haredi. Literally, Haredi in English would be God-fearer, which sounds great, except nobody would understand what you're talking about, including Jews wouldn't understand what you're talking about. The proper term in English would be ultra-Orthodox, and that's in contrast to the Orthodox. And here again, when you go from Hebrew to English, we can get a little bit unraveled. So in Hebrew, we could use a whole plethora of terms. We could say kippah sruga, we could say dati laumi, we could say orthodoxy moderni. In English, American English, even British English, the proper term would probably be modern Orthodox. And you have to be careful because for non-Jewish audiences, if I use the term Orthodox, psychologically, mentally, their minds go straight to Haredim, straight to ultra-Orthodox. And therefore, it's important for us as guides also to clarify this from the get-go. Don't wait for the confusion, but to say, we have different types of Orthodox Jews. We have ultra-Orthodox, and they look and behave in a certain way. Okay, they're not aliens, but they look and behave in a certain way. And we have modern Orthodox who look like us, okay, but they are devout Jews, and so on and so forth. And we're not going to the specific definition. Masorti, masortit in Hebrew, it's not the masorti or traditional movement in English. It's the conservative movement. Nobody calls themselves in English, they're from the traditional movement. They wouldn't know what that means, or it wouldn't speak to them. The same thing, Yaduta Mitkademet, progressive Judaism. This is not what Reform Jews call themselves. They call themselves Reform Jews. Okay, so we have to be cognizant, we have to be aware, we have to be awake to the fact that it's not a one-to-one situation when we slide from Hebrew to English, and we have to know how to speak to our target audience in a language that they will understand what we're talking about.
כאשר אתה דיברת על האורתודוקסים, הבהרת יפה איך לקרוא להם כקבוצה, אבל אמרנו שיש ביניהם מודרניים, modern orthodox, וה-ultra orthodox, ומה אתה עושה בתוך ה-ultra orthodoxy בין חסידים ומתנגדים? מה הביטויים באנגלית?
Excellent question. First of all, if you're speaking to a Jewish group and you say to them, Hasidic Jews or Misnagdic Jews, they'll kind of understand what you mean. The word Hasidic is already a word that is part of the nomenclature. In fact, I would say that most, even Jews, but certainly non-Jews in America, everybody, as far as they're concerned, all the ultra-Orthodox are Hasidic Jews. But to the point, there is a definition of what Hasidic or Hasid means. And I think it's important for us to explain to our target audiences that it means pietist. And this has significance, okay, because it was a pietist movement. If you're a Christian, listen to that, your ears prick up because you know that there are Christian pietists, and one can make a very interesting comparison, also in terms of the time frame, like in 18th century, okay, comparison between the rise of pietist movements in Western Europe and Central Europe and this Jewish pietist movement for different reasons, okay? But it's an interesting comparison if I'm speaking to a Christian audience. So speaking to Jews, it's also important that they understand what Hasidic means. Many Jews do not know how to differentiate or distinguish between Hasidic Jews and those who oppose the Hasidic movement. The literal translation of mitnagdim, okay, would be the opposition movement, the opposition to the Hasidic movement, this pietist movement. That would be the literal translation, okay? And of course, in Hebrew, we like to say litaim, because the truth is that the opposition movement, its core was founded in Vilna. Today, Vilnius is the capital of Lithuania, actually then a Polish city, but let's say the capital of Lithuania, modern Lithuania, and therefore we call them litaim, okay? But you wouldn't say litaim in English. It would be inappropriate. It would be the opposition movement to the Hasidic movement. It rose parallel to them, and we could say more about that later on.
רבה לשניכם, דני קופ, רואה הקהילה הבפטיסטית בירושלים, אבי, מרצה ומורה דרך ומתמחה ביהדות. תודה רבה לכם, נתפגש בפעם הבאה.